Hello. Is it working? Hello. Good afternoon, and what a crowd. Thank you all for coming. I am Chipi Morales, Curator of Education at the museum. I'm glad to welcome you all, and I'm particularly honored and have great pleasure in introducing to you Robert Farris Thompson, our speaker. I have to read your title, it's a long one. Colonel John Trumbull Professor of Art History at Yale University. In addition to his many academic responsibilities, he was master of Timothy Dwight Residential College from 1978 to 2010. This is the longest reigning master in all of Yale history. And I have met a number of students who refer to him with a great deal of affection as Master T. Not surprisingly, the college's motto was the Yoruba word, ashe, which can be loosely translated as make it happen. And he is going to share with us his thoughts on the work of Bedia and on the art of the Afro-Atlantic world. He has spent his life exploring the art of Africa and the African diaspora, and in so doing has opened the way for many, many other scholars. Professor Thompson's understanding of art encompasses language, religion, philosophy, anthropology, music, and dance. He has published numerous books on Afro-Atlantic themes, including Black Gods and Kings, African Art in Motion, The Four Moments of the Sun, Congo Art in Two Worlds, Flash of the Spirit, which we recently read and discussed in MAM's reading group. And by the way, this book was originally published in 1984 and is still readily available in print. The Face of the Gods, The Face of the Gods, and then Tango, The Art History of Love, which received several awards for excellence in writing. And most recently, Aesthetic of the Cool, Afro-Atlantic Art and Music, which includes a very wonderful essay on the work of José Bedia. Professor Thompson's writings have been translated into Spanish, Portuguese, French, Italian, and Flemish. So you have your choice of languages. And he is presently working on a new book called Staccato Incandescence, Towards a History of Mambo, which is his favorite thing. And now, ashe, and please welcome Professor Robert Farris Thompson.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank you for coming in such nice numbers. You women and you guys have saved me from having to say what the late and great Dizzy Gillespie once had to say. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for coming. I'd like to thank both of you. So, gracias por la cantidad. And secondly, how many of you heard the story when the late Senator Teddy Kennedy was confronted with José's painting? Have you heard that story? Perfecto, my kind of audience. So we were trying to show him, something about Palo, and he said, I'm having trouble understanding these images. I don't know what it's all about. And there was a guy, a Cubano, who was behind us, and he fisgoneando, eavesdropping. He said, oye, mi socio, si tú no sabes lo que representa Bedia, coño, no te metas. Which means, if you don't know what Bedia represents by now, don't mess with it. But I love this guy, and I owe him a lot. He got me initiated into Mayombe, and if that weren't enough, he said, oye, Thompson, vamos a ver a una persona interesante. And he, none other than introduced me to the true inventor of Mambo, Orestes Lopez. And Orestes and I hit it off, so te lo agradezco tanto. In fact, I'm going to sing a little mambo for him. But first, we're going to have a quiz. Students, what's this? Bien. Because if you didn't know, I'd give you a whole lecture on mambo. What's this? Tum, 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 tum. Wahel. Wahel is the ultimate treble riff of mambo. Tumbao is the bass riff. You put them together and you get Orestes Lopez Perez Prado, you name it. So with that as background, a little mambo for Jose. Repeat after me when I chant, Arriba Bedia. Arriba Bedia. Arriba Bedia. Arriba Bedia para siempre. All right. So let's dim the lights down. So I don't want them to see me. I want them to see what we're looking at. And what you're looking at is a sign of the four moments of the sun, the very core of the religion of the Bakongo and their offshoots here in Miami, Palo Mayombe, whatever. What is this? It's called in Kikongo Tikenga, which means the branching off from we are born in the east with the dawn, we flourish at noon, we fade at sunset, but we come back as a grandchild, or come back as a memory when the sun is shining on the Bakulu in the land of the dead. And the line which is invisible inside this darkness is the Kalunga line, the Atlantic Ocean, or any river, or any forest, El Monte, El Rio, whatever. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Now here is the ultimate cosmogram, the river Congo itself. Kalunga. Lunga means to be complete. Kalunga means the completion of completion, the fullness of fullness, the blackness of blackness, whatever, multiplied to infinity. And this is the river Congo, the river of the world, the Conga River that gave name to the Conga beat, which is the core of Mambo, which is the world beat. And you can see the sun path, La Vereda del Sol, crossing Kalunga. And home movie time, that's my son walking with a friend down the line there. So with this as background, now look at Bedia. Next slide, please. Look at his altar. The world is turning. The Kalunga line is right smack through the middle. We move from day to night. We move from life to the other world. We move from life to death. This is his own altar in Havana in 1988. And it is a perfect cosmogram. And there are tortoises, which are, as we will see, can be an emblem of patience. There is a crucifix, which means this is the good is being done here. There is an imbele for Sarabanda, which has got a signature on it. And the moon and the sun are powerfully shown because in the Congo religion, you can actually lick them. Munulekita and tangoye, munulekita and tangoye ngonda, which means I can lick the sun and the moon. All you have to do, wet your thumb, present it to the sun and the moon, and you receive the energy of the day. All of these things are present here. Next slide, please. Now you can see how cosmographic Bedia can become when you look at Wyatt McGaffey's diagram of the cosmogram explaining that the living turn white as they pass Nzadi, the great river, and there's this constant wheeling. And that leads to probably one of the central prayers of the Congo religion, which Bedia embodies in practically every other work that he does. And that is Lunga, Lukongolo, Lunga, which means keep the circle of your life complete. Keep that circle going. Live to your 90. Don't let anything stop the life force. So we will investigate this. This is one of the basic things that's buttressing his art, his total command of the cosmogrammatic wisdom of the ancient Bakongo. Okay? But there's something else. Mambo. Not mambo, not the mambo of Perez Prado, but the mambo before the mambo. Mambo meaning song. Next slide, please. Mambo meaning a problem. Here is a mambo in Congo. A woman is complaining. She's saying with a seed of generosity up there, you're supposed to be generous and you're stingy as hell. And down at the bottom is a seed. He said, you think that I want to have your seed, your children? Dream on. He said, this marriage, I feel like a goat that's strangled and hurled on the earth. I swear by the tomb of my great-grandmother that if you don't behave, I will leave you. So this is mambo. Mambo, a social problem that you carve out in this case and solve a problem. The problem here was lack of generosity, and the solution was to be giving. Now cut to Bedia. Next slide, please. Bedia has his mambos. This mambo is about teaching humility. ¿Quién sabe más? Isabel o Isabelita? ¿Quién sabe más? The elder, obviously, the seasoned elder. In other words, this is a mambo that is proclaiming the imperative of respect for the elders because they know a little bit more perhaps than we do. So here you have mambo, here you have Bedia, the cosmogram master, and Bedia, the writer of visual mambos. Next slide, please. And brother, can he cite. Bedia is doing for the Congo religion in Cuba and in Miami and everywhere else what the ancient people of the Middle Ages did, illuminating the Bible, the first word with the beautiful L in gold, and he is illuminating the Congo religion. Here he's showing you very dramatically the objects which go to make the central object of the Congo religion, the prenda, the cazuela, the recipiente, the inkishi, call it what you want. But look how he dramatizes all these forces coming in. Knives for Sarabanda, shovels for Sarabanda, anvils for Sarabanda, hammers for Sarabanda, a horn with a mirror in it, bititi mezo. Bititi means vines that grow, and we take those vines and make a potion to make a sea into the other world. Bititi mezo, the eyes sharpened by herbs, and more, and cut off branches, palos, hence the name of the religion. And then people have sprayed whiskey or smoke. You see those strange clouds that probably represent that, and a gun again for Sarabanda. All of these powers become one. And there's a chain coming in at about 3 o'clock, and we'll put the chain around the recipiente to tie these forces together. Next slide, please. That's what the religion is doing over and over again. Kanga, kanga, tie it up, tie it up. Tie the two great religions, Native American and Afro-Caribbean. There is Bedia, disguised as a fox. The fox, an Amerindian emblem par excellence of bravery. The fox that says, where is danger? Where is danger? Bring it on. That kind of guy. And on the right you have the governing this vessel moving forward, which is dragging the persons behind. More about that in the middle. But Bedia has taken, what Bedia does is, I salute his selectivity. Instead of putting the whole of Haitian art and Afro-Cuban art in this canoe, he puts perhaps the most powerful of the spirits, Baron Samedi. You see him. This is a Congo gesture. It means time out, stop, consider, time out. This turns to this. And what is he saying with this? He is saying, stop, consider that we all will be stopped by death eventually. Baron Samedi, Lord of Saturday. What does that mean? Jesus was crucified on Friday, died on Saturday, was resurrected on Sunday, Easter. So Saturday is the night when even Jesus was dead. And that's what Baron Samedi is talking about. Very heavy messages. At any rate, in the other boat, you have sage and other sacrifices for Native American religion. You have a matching of horns. You've got photographs of sweat GP, and so forth. But Bedia is, the beautiful thing about Bedia, he does not see different religions as incomprehensible, but as brothers together, what we need desperately in this era of Arab against Jew and Christian against Arab and so forth. There's something that needs to be looked at here behind these paintings. Next slide, please. Next slide. You can see how Bedia has taken this ritual, which we will be looking at in a minute, where you tie, say, cow skulls or buffalo skulls and embed the flesh of your back. You suffer the pain in order to drag these objects with honor across the earth. Only he has passed it through a new mind. Instead of just skulls, it's toy-like objects that reflect his childhood when he made his own toys. But above all, you see Congo, Haiti, with Native America sliding forward. And in the background, a painting by his brother, his spiritual brother, Jean-Michel Basquiat. You can see a colonialist, imperialist pith helmet. We'll see this in his own work shortly. Next slide, please. There you have the origin of this. Bedia has one of the best collections of Cheyenne ledger drawings that I know of. Probably, who knows just how rich it is. But you can see here, this unknown artist among the Cheyenne is documenting the very ritual that Bedia has blown up and magnified. Las cosas que me arrastran, the things that are dragging me. Dragging for a purpose to show how brave you are. Dragging to show that you are a fox, that you welcome danger, you welcome pain to fight for your people. Next slide, please. Now we come to one of my favorites of all his paintings. It's called Mundele Quiere Saber. Whitey wants to know. And you can see the particular Whitey, a very famous early Africanist named Emile Tordet. And Emile Tordet is interviewing a Bakuwa elder. Now, do you want the middle-class white question? So what? And the reason we're looking at this is to show how Africans defended themselves against probes from the outer world. First of all, Emile Tordet looks like a monster, huge, but that's because the Cuba chief, the Cuba country was surrounded by pygmies, and there was a lot of intermarriage, and he has absorbed genes from the pygmy. He's only about 5 feet high, but he knows more than he'll ever know. And not only that, he's showing what's happening with his gestures. Number one, this, Lumbu. I'm building a barrier between you and me. There's only so far that you can go. Number two, Kebuka, to look to the side. I'm not going to tell you everything you want. I'll give you just enough to keep you satisfied. Then will you please go away? Kebuka. Watch this when you're with black people here in Miami. If you see an argument breaking out, you will probably see also someone who's being attacked verbally turn his head to the side. It's an ancient black gesture. And when you see it, call me collect, 203-777-8433. All right? Most important of all, though, look at his legs, cruzados. This is the funda en kata, which is the way kings and noblemen and princes sit. So he outranks him. This white interloper is talking to someone who's of royal blood, and not only that, someone who knows the secrets of life. Look at the bracelet on his left arm. This world and the other world. Bilunga entonces, 2 circles. This cosmogram is ticking away secretly right on his arm. Next slide, please. Now watch what Bedia does with this. Bedia picks up everything. He picks up the funda en kata. He picks up the head aversion. But not only that, notice at the top of the head, secreto. Hay un secreto sabroso acá. There is this little secret navel. The Bakongo believe we have the navel, our official navel that we first ate with, but a secret one right up here where we feed messages from God and messages from the ancestors. And lo and behold, this is what Bedia is suggesting. And the ancestor is a mirror of him in the other world, beyond Kalunga. And again, Emile Tordet seems to loom. But now we know that it's not that he was big, it was that he was compact and small, seemingly small, and inwardly tall and rich with all of this knowledge. Mundele quiere saber, and then we could add the subtitle, pero nunca lo conquistará. Next slide, please. Now look at this. Oh, another favorite. This bird that's looking for another horizon. This bird, and look at why does the bird want another horizon? Well, look at the people around him. Strange birds with long beaks, very threatening to the Yoruba. Any bird with a beak like that is automatically suspect of being a witch. And the length of the beak, which is threatening and dangerous, rhymes with this rifle that's actually being aimed, as you see it, nearly 6 o'clock. And then you look up and you see a strange Mundele who's pointing with a finger that's abnormally long, interrupting, and birds with long beaks. No wonder he wants to escape, to find another horizon. And when he does, he's helped by something that is very Congo. You don't just go with one form of mediation, add 2 or 3, not just with bird, but with automobile, if you can see it way up there at the tip of the right wing, or in an ocean liner, which you see at the tip of the left wing. In other words, amplify and speed up and guard the continuity of the lunga, of the line of life. Next slide, please. And here we have it. We return to the central object of the Congo religion. And that central object which is connected often with snakes. Snakes, not in a fearsome way, but in a wonderful belief. The Bakongo believe that if you are doing this, if you are drumming and you keep to the beat and you don't let it stop, that a snake will hear it, the snake will come and coil around the conga drum. Now check out conga drums. They have a circle, a circle, a circle, all of them. And when you ask some people, say, oh, well, when the black man came to Cuba, they just used barrels, and the barrels already had the, yes, but why would they choose barrels? This is one of the oldest of Congo beliefs, that when the music, the mambo, whatever, is perfect, that even a snake will come and coil himself around the drum. So this snake is ready for action, and so is the tortoise. And there is the prenda, the lungowa, the sticks that pull in good and pull out evil, the knife, the mbele, the kiyumba, the skull of an ancestor we need his knowledge, the bow and arrow of Oshosi, which fuses with the Congo Mpungu, and Nguyo Watariamba, and then of course that marvelous object, Bititi Mezo, the herbs that give you vision, literally. Bititi, herbs on a vine on the ground. Meso, the 2 eyes. Now, if you go back to Congo, where so much of Bedia's lore comes from, you go back to Congo in the village of Kibusu, you will see a mighty tomb of an ancestor with a bell for this world, a bell for that world, a lizard of mystery for this world, a lizard of mystery for that world. But there are vines that come up and touch the face and then surround his eyes. There's the ultimate Bititi Meso, where the herbs are called right out of the forest to make you see across worlds. And not only that, the cazuela, and this is perhaps for Mukongo the most important thing about what they saved from Mother Africa, the tripod. That's very important. The first medicine, the primer nkisi, was brought down from heaven by God with an mpungo called funsa. And funsa cooked this first medicine on 3 cooking stones. And that forever after becomes the emblem of the emergence of medicine, the emergence of healing, the emergence of everything. The positive medicine cooked on 3 stones. And the cazuela with its tripod, perfect. And never forget when I showed Lidia Cabrera's, actually the very first photograph of a prenda we ever have in her book El Monte. And I showed that photograph to Mokongo, and he looked at it and said, that's all he said. But what he meant was, my God, they have that. They know it's power on three. Next slide, please. Now here's another favorite. Really beautiful. Piango, piango. Piango, piango, llega lejos. If you take it easy, step by step, you're going to get to your goal. This is a mambo. Mambo about patience. Mambo about perseverance. And it links up with a very heavy, similar saying that goes like this. Malembe, malembe, y cuenta lungueño, which means go gently, slowly, cautiously, just like the chameleon. Have you ever seen a chameleon walk? I've got to do this for you. A chameleon walks like this, like he'd just been through an earthquake and will never trust the ground again. This is the cuenta lungueño. Not only that, he has eyes that can roll back and see what's coming from behind. He's like a cosmogram, a reptilian cosmogram. Do I dare tell you what happened when I met one? It's irrelevant. May I be irrelevant for a second? I once saw a lungueña on the ground, and I stopped, and I threw a green shirt down, and I crawled on it. It turned perfectly green. And then I took off a plaid garment and put that down, and he went over it, and he turned a bilious brown, as if to say, white man, you think I'm going to change into that for you? Okay. Thanks for being tolerant of irrelevancies. So, look what Bedia's done. He's taken that proverb, and he's taken that mambo, and turned it into literally in constellation. But not only that, he gives the person that's embodying it, or telling us it, he gives him a turtle body, because turtles are slow and patient. And he fills that body as if it were a recipiente, as if it were a prenda, an inquisi, with horned divinities, with a person speaking out something positive. You can see, and more about that later, the way Bedia handles speech designs and Amerindian art. So the very fact that he's got this curved speech coming out of one of the forces automatically makes this Creole a blending of Congo and Amerindian. And there's Sarabanda's cutting knife, but Tertis is connected, he's amphibian, so you get a fish too, and you get a dog-like creature that speaks lightning, more power to him. And what I'd like to believe, this is my own interpretation, not Bedia's, but to me, the idea of being that patient, and taking all that medicine, and becoming that wise, gives you the right to be remembered forever, that a constellation in the heavens will take your shape, and you live forever in light and glory. Next slide, please. Now we come to, whoa. And this is one of the main problems of this early 21st century. If people would just stop thumbing their little text for a moment and consider how dangerous this period is. We have never had clashes of culture more severe, of which our clash with Al-Qaeda is only one. And so if there's anything we need to know today in 2012 and 2013 is how to stop seeing foreign cultures, immigrants, whatever, as the other, see them as people. And Bedia has a Native American chief with a Congo elder together, floating together, with one of the most interesting displays of the power woods of the Congo religion I've ever seen. Next slide, please. This is a tale of Himaguas, Mpangi, buddies, the Native American, the Native American and the Congo American. The Congo American is dressed in red. Why? Red, tukula. Red is the color of power. Red is the color of bravery. When you were initiated in the circumcision ceremony and you showed the bravery to take the knife, you completely painted your body in red. And the preceptor is all in red. Red is bravery. Red is transition. Red is mediation. And that's what he's giving us. Behind him, This Plains Indian chief rises up like a statement for all of Amerindian culture, and their use of feathers, again, something else that has to do with air and elevation. And behind, as if that weren't enough, there are pañuelos, handkerchiefs, white, green, blue, red. As the canoe or the raft moves forward, it's leaving a power trace, different spirits that will guard. And as we move forward, we see our old friend Lucero or Elegba right at the very front. And then, of course, riding, firma, pimba, riding with the most dramatic of the shapes here, guarding the boat, is a snake-like design, which is called nyoka. And the Bakongo snakes, as we've already seen, that if you're playing correctly, they'll wrap around your conga drum. But also, snakes are the emblem of dance. Nyoka, the serpent. Is. Tendua, the sign of makinu, dancing. And of course, if you've ever seen the Electric Boogie, you know how snake-like that can be. Or if you know the history of the jazz dance in this nation, in the 20s and 30s, the best of all jazz dancers, what did we call them? Snake hips. Snake hips. So all of that is condensed in just this curving line. But most of all, look at the barrage of fighting male woods. This, to me, comes straight from Angola, more than Congo. In Angola, they take trees, strip them of every leaf, strip them of every branch, cut it off, leave little stump-like shape, and embed them. Because the tree is now dead, it becomes a receptor for the dead. But it has to have everything stripped for it before it is sacralized and ready. And that's what you build the first bottle trees in Black North America with dead wood, and you hammer the bottles on. It spreads throughout the Congo Americas, not just Cuba. But Bedia gives you a good look, a close look at the palos. Not only the lungoas, those that have hooks, but those that are displaying stumps, displaying the fact that they're spiritually ready. They're fighting wood, madera que lucha. Next slide, please. And here he is. Here he is. One more shot. Bedia. Here he is. What does this mean, these Cheyenne drawings? What does it mean? It means that you're looking at strips of a movie that become part of, goes through his mind. You're looking at a dynamo in his house. This is what Bedia comes from. Direct objects and direct thoughts on both sides, Black and Native American. Next slide, please. And now, un favorito, una cosita que me encanta. Subtitle, I like this. Are you ready for one more absurdly irrelevant comment? Are you ready for the subtitle when Lauren Bacall was pushed against the wall and kissed passionately, and she says in English, "You'll never know what that kiss meant to me." Guess what the subtitle was? Muchísimas gracias. Well, trato de traducir mejor que eso. I'll try to translate better. Just look at what's going on here. There is a school marm, and she is trying to teach them the last letter of the alphabet, Z. And this is Z. And there are three little goody-goodies. I know, let me say it, Z, Z, Z. They're little, what we used to call brown noses. Get it? He caught them. But then two surround him and say, "You're never going to get it, you've gone to sleep." They're making fun of him. But he doesn't have to get it because he's already in another world using the Native American speech lines that curl into volutes of thoughts and dreams and thoughts and dreams. He doesn't need this. He's totally on his way to being a painter. And he sees himself as the fox, the man bred for danger with a fox tail and fox ears. And this is a way of preventing his creativity from being disturbed by people who want to pull you down if you have an imagination, so that you come out bland like everyone else. Next slide, please. And it's based on something that really happened. You can see here among the Kiowa, the schoolmarm who's teaching the Native Americans, and look at them. You wouldn't hardly even know they were Native American, nor are they realizing that what she's preaching to them is not just A, B, C, and D, but white supremacy. But there's someone that's not going to let that happen. A Native American doubter, the far right. I see him as, is it fair to see him as you? Okay, gracias. Definitely. Next slide, please. Then we come to another period in the career of José Bedia. The period when he went on spiritual journeys and sampled the great sacred herbs that lead to visions. When Jack Kerouac began on the road, he said, I knew there would be women, there would be visions. I knew the pearl would be handled to me. But it never happened except at once in a town called Ciudad Victoria. But with Bedia, it happened once, twice. The ayahuasca episode, the ayahuasca potion, which he took, and which gave him this vision that suddenly the shaman became a black jaguar. And the shaman has prepared not only the potion, but the potion has not only medicine in it, but spiritually it's believed it has icarros. It has all kinds of chants. And how would that chant go? Well, once I was allowed to dance with the Mescalero Apache, and we danced for 7 hours in and out, and their chant became part of me. Had enough? Okay, and hopefully it gives you an idea. The song is different, obviously, from another part of Amerindia, but as the chant comes down, look how Bedia is translating it into strings of speech, strings of the heads of ancestors, all of it coming down into his hand and into his ear. But what's marvelous about this ayahuasca period is that the ayahuasca potion pushed him into color. The earlier Bedia paintings have just white background, but this has, the reds are flowing so quickly that it's like you were on an Acela train on your way up to Philadelphia, and you look out the window and everything is blurring this way. In other words, the spiritual event is so powerful that the world itself is revolving. And red, of course, the color of mediation, which is perfect for this. Next slide, please. And then once this starts, look at this. This just happens to be perhaps one of the most powerful of the culture heroes of Afro-Cuba, Andrés Petit. Andrés Petit that spoke fluent Spanish. He spoke church Latin as a Catholic. He spoke Lucumí, the Yoruba of Cuba. He spoke Palo, the creolized Kikongo mixed with Spanish, with not just ordinary Spanish, Bozal, the first generation. And with these powers, he was able to summon way in the distance, you see an Mfumbi, the spirit of a dead person, who translates into smoke. And he pulls that smoke and pulls that smoke right into his spiritualist vessel, filled with water, because water, any card-carrying spiritualist can tell you, that water attracts the spirit. But he wants good spirits, so he's dropped a crucifix into the goblet, as you can see. And there is the actual photograph of Andrés Petit, and there he is, his face mysteriously sort of masked, and underneath, on the top of the table, it's what the Brazilians, Umbanda would call mesa científica, a scientific table, the science of attracting spirits into water. But underneath the mesa is a cazuela, a correction, is a recipiente, is an inquishi, is a prenda. So you can see the two religions floating together. And it changes his style so that the background begins to remind you of Turner or other atmospheric English painters. It's quite different. Bedia has allowed himself to be pushed in a different direction. Next slide, please. And there is Andres Petit. Now here's someone you want to respect. Here's someone you don't want to get angry. Lidia Cabrera explains why. Si lo enoja, if you anger him, if you lie, if you break moral rules, if you're an adulterer, or worse yet, you kill a brother in a crime of just being drunk, then all he has to do is look at you, close one eye, wink with the left eye, and say, adiós, mi hijo, para que a las 24 horas se entregara tu alma. It's so heavy, I'm not going to translate that. Just that don't piss him off, what I'm trying to say. All right? Next slide, please. Now, here's an old favorite. I actually saw this being made. I was lucky enough to be in Paris for the Magicien de la Terre exhibition, which was the first time that native arts and museum arts and studio art and street art all were seen as equal. A beautiful idea, because if you treat everyone the same, then the whole world will open up to you. That's a Mambo insight. I think Bedia has taken Sarabanda, the Mpungo that he adores, and Sarabanda worked on the railroad. Sarabanda, as I said earlier, was the John Henry of Black Cuba, and he's rolling on so many wheels. He is a freight train. He is a passenger train. And of course, all he has to do is expel a little tobacco smoke to become the locomotive, the steam locomotive. And various forces working with him. There is Sarabanda himself blessing us with a spray of aguardiente or blessing us with tobacco. And there is his guardian spirit, Lucero, at the crossroads, the immortal crossroads of Jiquenga. And there is another spirit, a hunting spirit, the Nkuyu Watariamba. And you notice that they're separated with brick palisades. This in Kikongo is called Lumbu, where you build the altar, separated from the profane world. And the first altar that I saw, the first time I went to Havana when I met Bedia, his altar had bricks all around it. And then gradually this idea becomes a metaphor of artistic expression as well as religious expression. Next slide, please. And now you can see if you move in the different lumbu or the different protected enclosures, you can see, for example, there's a stool here that's been signed. This I love because it reminds me of Black Rio de Janeiro. The religion of Rio, the official religion practically is Umbanda. And Umbanda is to Brazil as Quimbisa, the religion which Petit form is to Cuba. In other words, a tight, logical, exciting blend of spiritualism, Catholicism, and Congo classical religion, and if need be, a little bit of the Orisha thrown in there too. So what happens in Rio, when you enter a shrine, if you see a calabash that has a signature on it like this, then leave it alone, because it means only a spirit for whose symbol you see is allowed to drink out of that. So these are just little ritual things, but the point is that piango piango, llegará a lo lejos, by carefully learning each little item of ritual, not just over a week, but over years, the artist gives us the story from the inside. Next slide, please. And this is an interesting composition and has to do with Angola and Havana. And I see I'm running out of time, so I think that I will pass on to my ultimate favorite of all. Next slide, please. And that is this incredible painting called Naufragio, Shipwreck. It's brilliant in its abstraction. And it, as Judith Bettelheim says in that awesome catalog, is showing compassion for all refugees, not just the Balseros. It's showing compassion for refugees, and then I would add immigrants, you name it. And what's happening here is so beautiful. The style, it's one thing to say that I am for the balseros or I am for immigrants in the United States, but it's another thing to know how to express that so you catch attention. And the dog, the umbois, that will help us on that. Look at the dog. It comes down, jum, he vanishes into a vanishing point that becomes a thigh, but the thigh is abstract. Where's the rest of the body? Don't ask. It's totally abstract. And he loves these zooming, slashing diagonals like the abstract art of Franz Klein. And only recently, Bedia decoded the front. The dog is not just coming down and resting his muzzle. The dog is touching. He's touching a bowl that has a dog in it, and he's touching himself to energize the lungoa. The lungoa, the hooks that pull in goodness, the hooks that pull out evil. They've never seemed stronger. They seem to crawl. They're coming alive from the energy that comes from that vanishing point. Bam! And then 2 curved lines. And the wonderful protective spirit, Elegba, who is also Lucero, the morning star, fused in Umbanda, fused in Palo, fused in Kempisa. And he's showing oars to row away, to be safe, and be guided by Lucero. Lucero is actually an avatar of Eshu. And when you worship Eshu, you sing this. Ago meta meta. Ago meta meta. Ago meta meta, which means hail, multiples of 3. Left, right, forward, 3. Look at the image. 1 pair of eyes, 2 pair of eyes, 3 pair of eyes. Ago meta meta. Just these little things that are happening all around you. Next slide, please. And this slide is the woman who copied this for me. Didn't quite get it in focus, so we'll let these 2 go. Next slide, please. Now. Among the balseros was a man who stripped himself bare of everything except his shirt, his pants, and a religious icon. And the religious icon got him across the Straits of Florida to join his family in Miami or wherever. And Bedia was taken by this, and he made a composition which shows how Bedia can jump from huge scale, because this is something that needs to be talked about in the art history of José Bedia, is the dramatic use of scale. Big as big can be, or delicate and miniaturizing, whatever is called for. And we opened this chest, meant spiritually to get people across the water. And by the way, I think, is it fair to say that you're here, all waters, not just the Straits of Miami? In other words, all voyages across difficulties or not? Yeah, well, whatever. At any rate, you see the different religions. 1, spiritualism. 2, Ocha. And mostly you see San Lazaro with his crutches and the marks of smallpox breaking out on this disc on the left. And then you see Palo with various signatures or pimbas. All under the gaze of the Orisha, become Mpungu, become saints, become whatever, but all guiding, and you can recognize Yemaya. You can recognize Babalua Ye, who is also San Lazaro. Next slide, please. Next slide. We come to Mother Kalunga. Kalunga, the completion of completions, the endlessness of endlessness, the power of all powers. Lunga, to make complete. Kalunga, the force that hits you with the necessity of completing your life and fighting for the full circle. And here she is protecting Balseros again. But all tied up against her chest is a city. Could be Miami, it could be New York. Now I have to ask the artist a direct question. Why is the city there? Okay. Have you guys got that? Gracias. It's not often that I can give a lecture and have the guy that did the painting right in the front row. It's a privilege. But look at what he's abstracted. There is Kalunga as an ocean. There are dangers in her. Fin, shark, tiburon, and the dead coming up staring doubly. Fin, shark, tiburon, again. But nevertheless, she is with these people. They will survive. And Bedia builds the balsa with blocks that stand for building, that stand for foundations, and that make the boat an architecture as well as a nautical expression. Next slide, please. But what I find marvelous are these bent twigs that symbolize waves, huge dramatized waves. This is Bedia's take on one of the most famous of all paintings, the famous Japanese, not that he's thinking of this painting, but let's say that this is him coming equal with it from an independent source. You remember the painting of a giant tsunami wave about to engulf poor Japanese fishermen. It's one of the most famous objects in Japanese art history. But this is Bedia's answer. The waves are streamlined. The waves are abstracted. There are Raphael-like lines coming. You see the wave is taller than the ship, but with faith and with luck, they'll make it. Next slide, please. And they'll make it because they know what to sacrifice. They sacrifice whiskey, aguardiente, sacrifice wine, and bring the male fighting powers of the palos to the very foreground. And you see a lungoa on the left, but mostly they're fighting males. Next slide, please. And then another way of saying to protect the voyager, we're all voyagers. We're on a voyage whether we know it or not, from life to the other world. So we're all voyagers, and it's comforting to know there's someone like Lucero, Lucero, the morning star, Lucero, the planet Venus, Lucero, that sort of tells time for the devout of the Palo religion. For example, there was a Palo martial art called Mané, and people would chant a mixture of Kikongo and Spanish. Yen kishi mi mani, yen kishi mamini, mamulahera mi mani, mi mani abrakoto mi mani, and so forth. Meaning the power, the royal power in me is descended from the king and queen of Congo. I can fight, I can fight, I can fight. And he fights in the name of Lucero because when he's starting to beat his opponent and the opponent's getting tired, he cites Lucero and says, Lucero madruga, cambio color. Lucero madruga, cambio color. That's Bosal for the morning star is beginning to dim out, and you're going to dim out. I'm going to crush you. Next slide, please. And then more of the flying of the pañuelos, and there's our man who's liberating himself. Like the fox, he's chained, but like the fox, he'll get away. Bedia was just talking about this. I think it'd be better to have him describe it himself. But next slide, please. And then we end with two. I have good news for you. We've come to the end of the lecture. And Bedia is a motion expert, meaning that he knows how to augment the transition. Remember that we're constantly seeing how we can transist, persist, survive. And there's a lot of going on there. You take a look carefully on the right. We escape by hélice, propeller. We escape by remo, oars. We escape with the fleetness of an avion by airplane. And what he's doing, dramatically angling it. Notice this too, that when Bedia speaks, he speaks in angles, angulos, which of course each angle, wherever you have an angle, you have a crossroads. So it's kind of crossroads speech, whether conscious or not. And every motion generating thing that he can think of, the oars, the propeller, the plane, the boat, the waves, all the people greeting him are 4 people that are hoping to escape. But what I'd love to hear is that everything's in its place. Everything is combined with metrical mastery. And it leads me to my last thought, and that is to compare him with Congo-American graves and Congo-American house protective Nkishi-like objects. Next slide, please. We end with Henry Dorsey. Henry Dorsey was a Mason in Black Kentucky. And here Henry Dorsey was, let's see if I can get closer. I need some light. Henry Dorsey was a master of combining forces. The whole of Henry Dorsey is an exalting teaching, a charm for the denial of hurt, for the re-awakening of spirit. Henry Dorsey discovered reflections of the Congo-Nkishi tradition on his own. Pepe discovered reflections through initiation. The man in touch with his origins. So the Bakongo say is a man who will never die. And it goes like this. Mukana, Kinjwale, Yatu, Imuzinga. Zinga means live forever. So the art of José Bedia stands at the end as an innovation of the meaning of existence in terms of the Bakongo might have phrased it. If you know where you're coming from, and you know where you're going, you can decorate the way to the other worlds, the road to the ancestors and to God. And your name, as Vedia's name, will forever merge with their glory. Thank you very much.
We're going to take some questions. I want to thank Dr. Thompson, and also we learned so much today, as well as the fact that you can be irrelevant if you try.
I love questions.
And you try.
The only way I can tell what I said.
I'm going to repeat the questions from you all so that we can pick them up on our documentation and so that the whole room can hear them. If you could raise your hand so we know. Anyone have a question?
Any questions?
Speechless?
Well, I'll ask a question. How many of you into reggaeton? Yeah, that's all I need to know. Think about reggaeton. Punk, ting, ting, boom, boom, chick. That's the habanera. You slow it down. Dun, 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 dun. It's in Carmen. It's in Bizet. I mean, this world is around. It's going to get your mama and your grandmama, too. Yeah. No puedes escapar. How many of you would like to know what rumba means? Okay. Work out. Work out. Rumba, Jose. Rumba. Work out. And many of the words that we dance to are imperatives of verbs. Canyengue in Argentina means melt into the music. And rumba means to work out. And mambo connects with the phrase abrekuto iguiri mambo. Hear, learn. My God, you know what's happening? You're getting another lecture. Yeah, is there a question? Yeah, sure.
I just had a question about...
Wait, I'm just going to tap at the door now. Let me get us close.
I wanted, you started by talking about music, and I see that so much of Bedia's work is concerned with movement, migration. So I'm wondering, can you say a little bit more about whether give some work for to make that change?
Well, that's a little, I can ask, I got it. Well, there are many nights, but my favorite night that pulled me into mambo, I was at the Palladium, and the Palladium was to New York as the Tropicana was to Havana, as the Savoy Ballroom was to black jazz dancers. And I was there, and it was a Tito Puente got off the stand, and a young black dude jumped on the stand and went, Aguacero de Mayo, Aguacero de Mayo, Aguacero de Mayo. And I thought, holy calliope, what is that? Aguacero de Mayo, behold the first waters of May, the first waters, the first rain, the first shower, aguacero. And I wrote down in my notebook, I think there may be religious implications to this. Okay. 30 years later, that was in 1955. 30 years later, I was assigned to interview Toni Morrison, the black novelist. And while we were talking, she said, you know, you like black culture. Maybe you can explain why Mama said we should all bathe in the first shower of May. And I thought, uh-oh, black North America, black Cuba, black Puerto Rico. And then a few years later, I opened the pages of Lydia Cabrera, and she said, if you wish to have direct contact with God, collect the first waters of the first shower in May. It's direct from Him, and you can bathe in it, you can be blessed in it. And so that's the first missionaries to come to Congo, and forget the name of the missionary, but it's around 1668, that's all I can remember at the moment. In 1668, he said, among the superstitions of the Negroes is an amusing belief that if they collect the rainwater of a certain time, it will help them. How could anyone be so arrogant? But that's one of the things that pulled me into Mambo. Another thing was Benny Moré. In fact, I was so tempted, but it's, you know, I've done, I don't want to embarrass Pepe, but I was going to turn him into a Benny Moré song about who invented Afro-Indian painting. But anyway, Benny Moré and a mambo which mystified me when I first heard it, it goes like this. Mambo, batiri, 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 ikwi, ikwi, ikwi. And I thought, what the hell happened to my Spanish? But it wasn't Spanish. Batiri is abacuafu, speed it up. And ikwi is a voice mask. You don't say ekwe, it's too sacred. You change E to I. Ekwe, 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 ikwi, ikwi, ikwi. And that was invented by a buddy of Benny Moré named Antardali. And when I went to the Palladium, Graciela, the great woman singer of all mambo, she started singing, beedi bee kumbi, kumbi bimbi, beedi bee kumbi, ikwi. I thought, oh no, there's that word again. And I interviewed her and I said, where does that word come from? That's not Spanish. She said, oh no, that's Antardali. Antardali, one black man, changed the course of a life because it became a secret poetry. You either wanted to know what mambo stood for and suddenly become an Africanist, whether you wanted to. Daddy wanted me to be a lawyer. Mommy wanted me to be a priest. No way. I'm a mambologist. But you see what happened. I was pulled by the conguero, and I was pulled by Benny Moré, and it just got more and more intense. And finally, Machito, who was one of the richest minds in all of Harlem, Machito literally has a song called Blin, 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 Blin. That's the clave beat, nakedly. Tung, 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 tung. But suddenly, to my amazement, they say, oye, la enganga ya, enganga ya, ah, lucero. And I thought, oh, whoa, what is happening? The song was written by Chano Pozo, and Chano Pozo, of course, knew every black religion and backwards and forwards. He inserted a little palo and also a play, so you don't know whether iya means mother in Abakwa, or ya in Lukumi, or ya or Yahweh in Congo. So you just get it three different ways. Are you ready for one more irrelevant statement?
Yes. Bring it on.
And, I just want people say, what are you doing as an old white-haired white man in all this blackness? And I'm going to give you the answer because they taught me how to do it. dance. This goes with the saying, hey, Duma, hey, buddy, Duma, hey, fine, hey, Diwaga, the Shanga, move, Diwaga, the Shanga. You're like a one guy, you're like a charm. Hey, move the solar, hey, I'm willing, pretty mama, I'm willing. Yeah, thanks a lot.